Hello, hello. I am very excited to be joined today by my good friend Danny Bent. Danny is a anointed happiness guru and the founder of Project Awesome, an adventurer, now training to be a therapist as well, which is very exciting, and a ton of other things. So I'm going to let him do the rest of his introduction. I'm going to hand it over to Danny. How are you, Danny, today?
I'm good,
Welcome.
thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited. You were one of the first people I thought of when I started this.
Great. I don't know. Continuing that, I think really the thing that I've done that tied in all those things and all the other things is to just be myself and follow my heart. And so
Yeah.
if something feels like, and so yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead, but like following your heart has risks, and it also creates complete and utter wonder. So. Um, Yeah, I'd leave it at that for now. But like we created that run across America that raised $500,000 for the people affected by the bombings, and
Yeah,
uh,
the Boston
one run for
bombing.
Boston. Yeah, written a couple
Yeah.
of books.
Oh
So
yeah.
I like to do things
I
basically.
recommended one of your books to one of my clients and he went and bought it. It was really exciting.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so Danny and I met 10 years ago at a big night out after an adventure convention. I knew some of the people that were speaking, and so there was a night at the pub after all these people presented about their crazy adventures, and it was really fun. We were in London Bridge and there was like 10 adventurers just getting pissed. And I met Danny and then I started going to Project Awesome. And yeah, and then that's how a friendship kind of was built. And then I found myself a few years later working with Fuller's. I was in charge of their social media and some of their marketing stuff, and they were trying to revamp the London Pride image. And we were specifically looking for things we could do to make it like young and cool and fun. Because it is like an older man's ale. So the demographic of people that drink it is not so young and hip anymore. And I was like, I think I know someone who might be really cool for this. And they wanted someone to run the London Marathon wearing the London Pride pint thing. And so I messaged Danny and that became a thing. And now he's run the London Marathon how many times?
Well, loads of times, and nearly all of them for London Pride, and one of them has
Yeah.
a pint glass itself and broke the world record for the fastest pint glass running a marathon. It
Yeah.
kind of exploded. That meeting we had was just like what a great moment in my career that was. I loved the meeting. I think your boss was I was telling them about the run across America, and your boss was in tears,
Hmm.
and
Head of PR, you had her crying.
I know it was just like absolutely top notch. And then I absolutely loved that relationship. Super mega cool.
Yeah, yeah. That was a great, one of the most fun like work things that I have facilitated in my career. So that was like a peak time for me as well. But yeah, so to get into Danny's past, can you start by telling us a little bit about your early days, Danny? So like who is Danny? Where did you grow up, sort of your parents and like early career stuff to lay the scene?
Yep. So I was born in Buxton in the Peak District, and like
Oh,
literally I was.
water.
What's that?
Where the bottled water is
Where the
from.
bottled water was, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just like we'd walk out the back of our garden and be up in the hills, and really we were pretty feral. We were just up there playing the whole time. And mum and dad were both runners. Dad was second in the world ultra distance runner. He
Oh,
had he was really into it. And but at 6 years old we moved to Essex, a massive change. We all absolutely hated it. Because there was no snow, there was no green fields out the back of the house where we could just go and run wild, and people didn't understand my accent. I was very like, "Hey up, me duck," kind of. You can imagine me as a 6-year-old with that.
I
But
can.
but and then school was kind of hard. I'm dyslexic. I've just been in the last few years being diagnosed with ADHD, and sitting in a classroom when really, and I think I've got a fairly decent brain. Like I've got a first class maths degree, so my brain's half decent. But oh my goodness, I found school hard. Just sitting there, I would have to turn my brain off. And I think that was part of the problem initially, was they were just like, well, Dan's not trying, he's not putting any effort in. But it's like, how can I put effort into listening to like reading a textbook that's there already whilst you read it out in classroom, write it on the board, and I copy it into my book? It's like, that is just not, that's for some kids, but that is definitely not for me. So
Yeah.
school was kind of an interesting one. And I think there was a part of me that was like really starting to rebel. There was the frustration of being so locked down in that sense kind of exploded on nights out and things like this. And I would get in bits of trouble, and it was just, I was bored of the nights out as well. We'd go out drinking, and I would be like, this is not my cup of tea. This is not stimulating enough. And so I'd either take all my clothes off and dance on a table, or I would I'd probably, someone would do something to one of my friends like they do in nights out, and I would not let it lie, and would end up having fights and stuff like this. This is probably a side to me that you didn't actually know. But
Well, I know that you had a tendency to get a bit wild on nights out, but I didn't see it that many times, and it was always a very fun side because that's more recent, like the last
oh yeah,
decade.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I think I grew out of that. I was a
yeah.
teenager with loads of hormones. I went to a grammar school, so it was like all boys. It was just
I
like,
do find I see a lot people that had ADHD, because it wasn't so well known a long time, or yeah, a long time ago. It
yeah,
wasn't so well known a couple decades ago
yeah,
when a lot of us were going through school, like millennials. And the stories that I hear are like it's traumatic it's like being held prisoner
yeah,
and being punished for thinking the way that you think, and it's really unfair. I'm so glad that there's a torch being shown on that in the mental health, and like in schools now, people understand it, but they didn't then. And a lot of people have very traumatic schoolhood memories and experiences because it was unknown what was going on with them if they had ADHD.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think, I didn't really talk a lot. I was very quiet, but I kind of talked with my physicality. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Oh,
And
that's
then
so
and
nice.
then and then at I don't know, in my late teens and early 20s, I just kind of I saw someone dancing wildly on the dance floor, and I was like, oh, that person seems to be being celebrated by other people. And I kind of, I tried it, and I was like, oh wow, people like this. And then I guess that's where that kind of hyper focus came on that. I just kind of doubled it, and then doubled it again, and then doubled it again, and then you become this person that is being referred to as the happiness guru, winning awards for being one of the happiest people in the UK, and creating mass, like, global communities.
Mhm.
And I think that has all come from that kind of slightly skewed, uncomfortable place, and it kind of exploded in that direction, basically. And I'm dealing with that now as I go through my own therapy training and doing therapy myself, and I'm unpicking like, oh wow, this is why I think, because I've been an alien. I have, and my life has been so wild. I don't think any celebrities have the same life as me. It's been so varied, been so bonkers, because I've got no fear to try any. I will, if I have a feeling in my heart that I want to do it, doesn't matter about money, whatever. I will just go and do it. And with this music, art, I'm just like want to do stuff. And
I mean, even can you just touch very briefly on the bike trip? Because that story alone is insane because you gave me the book to read, and I remember I read it and I was like, "Are you serious? You did this?" Like, It's next level.
Yeah, I think. Well, so let's just kind of rewind a little bit before that. And I got my first class maths degree without doing any work. It was just something
Yeah,
that I've got an innate, like it's my superpower. Maths is one of my superpowers. And
not mine.
and then I was like, well, what? My mum and dad were both teachers, and they said, whatever you do something else before you become a teacher. And
Hmm.
I was like, well, the people in my class were going into corporate finance. I was like, oh, I'll just go into start working in a bank. And if I thought school was a cage, working in a bank is like a cage that lasts for much longer periods of the day and is much more stringent. And what you're doing is so, for me personally, felt so utterly pointless. And I didn't even at one point I was working out figures that people would be trading off and stuff like this. And I didn't even know that people were trading off these figures. I just was working out these figures, and some days I'd just like fudge them. I'm like, oh wow, people are losing a lot of money or gaining a lot of money on my figures. But anyway, it was not where I was meant to be, basically. And I
Yeah.
kind
How
of,
long did you do that?
oh well, I guess I was 21 straight after uni, and I would just do that. I would travel. I'd go traveling, could do that again, go traveling again, and the travel never quite felt like it was what I wanted to do. It was more of the same of what I was doing here in England, but in a different place. And kind of seeing nice things and meeting loads and loads of people, and but it kind of centered around nights out and stuff like this. But
Yeah, it's a bit of an escape, but it's not touching on that fulfilling purpose
exactly what
thing
you
it's missing.
yeah, exactly what you really really wanted to be doing. And they just kind of, this thing crept up on me that I wanted to do a super long bike ride and go and explore the world. And this is a time before social media though, so it wasn't like I'd seen other people. It was just coming from deep within. And I transitioned to become a junior school teacher for a few years, and we were learning about this place called Chembakoli in India. And I decided I was going to go and teach in Chembakoli in southern India, where the kids have to walk for 3 miles to get water. They have to, I think it's 2 miles to get to school. But if the elephants and tigers are there, it's a 5 mile loop. So it's a really wild place, and I just thought this needs to be brought to life for the kids because they thought this was history. Like
Mhm.
who, when you're kind of teaching in London, who is thinking that that is a real life scenario where you have to
Those
take the
tigers.
other route because of tigers? Um, and so anyway, and I said to my parents I was going to go and do this bike ride and 9,000 miles London to southern India. And my dad was really panicked, and he started having nightmares, and he was whimpering in his sleep, thinking I was going to die on the route. And my mum was super mega calm, and she's been the one that always would kind of whimper when I was going off to play rugby because of the risks and things like this, partly because I was a wild man playing rugby as well. Um, but she was really calm, and when I asked her why she was so calm about it, she said, well, you told us when you were 11 years old that this is what you wanted to do, cycle around the world and raise money for charity. And so it was that kind of 19 at that point, 19-year itch, really. I'd really wanted to do that. And I would say, that idea at 11 years old is an ADHD brain. It's one that can't be constrained by society. It wants to do what it wants to do.
Yeah.
And so that would be, yes, there were still things that were slightly different in me that would be from before that, but this was the first thing where I was like, people are like, what the hell are you doing? This is ridiculous. Like I say, because the people haven't seen it. Whereas nowadays, doing it is very normal because people see other people doing it and want to do the same. But so I just
Yeah.
kind of, I finished my teaching job on the Friday. We went out and we got really, there's quite a lot of drink involved in these stories, but I don't really drink at all now. I haven't drunk for ages. And we went ahead of, I think we were dancing on the tables again that night, and I hadn't packed anything. It was all just lying on the floor of my room in Richmond. And I woke up the next morning, and we were meeting at 7 o'clock. So I woke up at 6 o'clock the next morning, like banging hangover, just chucked the things in the bags, my panniers, the things you attach to either side of your wheels. And then I
Mhm.
rode off to, we met at Starbucks, and we cycled to Dover, where I got the boat over. And from Calais, I just set off non-stop to India. It's just even amazing to think you can do that.
Yeah.
We're so connected that it's possible. But on that trip, it was I just was very much in the hands of the universe. So if someone said, come and stay with me, I went to stay with them. If someone said, and you know, that led to kind of naked saunas being thrashed by branches and things like this, and being held at gunpoint, waking up with maggots in my beard, like full of maggots where they've been dripping from a rotten beam above me.
From TV. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
that's like Fear Factor or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. But I was the beauty of this trip, much of it you spend on your own, but I was so free. I was so free of everything that constrains us in society. And yeah, my voice was wavering then, and you know, this is a long time ago. I've talked about this a lot, but still, that freedom, not answering to your parents, not answering to your friends, not answering to
The
work,
boss.
yeah,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. Such freedom and such space for your brain to explore, and you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about the world, but of course, you get to the end of that, and actually, the end. Although there was a celebration for me arriving, I arrived on my 31st birthday. It was beautiful, but at the same time, it's over, and it's a really sad time, and it's a very much come down. And then you come back from that, and you come back to everything else. You come back to the all the shops, the advertisements, all the things vying for your attention. And you know, and as time goes on, you know, social media advances, and there's so many things screaming for your attention. And it's after something like that. I would say it's actually, for me, it's been hard to I was the thing is, I was never really part of society. I never felt like, even when I was working, I was like, I am not meant to be here. I'm an alien from a different planet put in this place. But you're much more aware of it after doing something like that, that when you come back and you're like, how are people managing to continue just existing in this world?
And it's like no wonder everyone has anxiety and depression. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you spend time very remote and then you come back and you go to like Piccadilly Circus or like Times Square and it's like, ugh. Like it's like an affront. It's not right. It's just not right.
Yeah.
I'm feeling well.
I would
Yeah.
say Piccadilly Circus probably is the equivalent to our kind of primal selves of seeing like the marauding hillside tribe coming to ransack your village. It's just so much stimulus, so much noise, so many visuals, and um,
Man-made
yeah,
fake. Yeah.
like we are it. We haven't had time to evolve from our kind of tribal selves, where we look out of our huts that we probably share with 20 other people or whatever, and see green. Like, green means life and means water. When you look out your window and you see grey, when you wake up in the morning in a concrete building that is, you know, for me, on my own, and then you look out the window and you see more concrete, it's like, you can't eat concrete. I am so sure that your primal self is feeling unsafe in this environment. And then there's cars moving around at 30, 40 miles an hour. The only things you saw like that previously were probably lions, or, you know, things, saber-toothed tigers that were coming to tear your head off. And I still think, or if you were moving at that pace, you'd be falling off a cliff. It's there's so much stuff that just doesn't feel right to me.
I've become so innately aware since I became a therapist and throughout the duration of my training, and I think COVID started it really. The the need, I have such a deep need pretty much every day. I have to connect with something in nature. So I have to go for a walk or I have to go to the park or something. I have to be in a natural space, and it's one of the reasons why I'm leaving London finally. I'm just like, it's finally like I'm not connected to this place in the way that I used to be. And like, the yearning to be in nature is so strong for me now. Like, I need to be outside and away from, yeah, the city. It's not my place anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I live on the edge of the Peak District, and so just outside of Sheffield, and on the edge of Sheffield. And every morning, I'm trying to walk to nature, sit, meditate, come back. I think it's just
Mhm.
a really good. It's a grounding for my day to stop me sitting on the couch, because this is the other thing, is that we have water coming from a tap, we have food in the cupboard, heater button, and my bed's upstairs.
Mhm.
It's we've spent such a long time surviving, picking berries, hunting, um, making sure we have warmth, making sure, building fires, all this sort of stuff, all this kind of primal stuff, and now we don't have that. Like literally, all that would have taken up our whole day to make sure we've got enough food, make sure we've got enough wood, make sure we've got warmth, make sure the shelter's all still standing and everything. And so we've got this time in the day where we would have been doing that, where we're thinking like, what is the point in, what is the point? And the point used to be to survive. And now, like, there's so many people are thinking, what is the point?
Mhm.
And it's because there is no point. The point has been taken away from us by these great advantages. And I don't want to kind of look down on these things too much, because we're completely and utterly privileged to have this. But at the same time, the privilege, you can see it. You can see it in any type of privilege. Privilege has a dark side to it.
Yeah, it comes at the cost of, the other half of the world that is deeply suffering.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
also the other half of yourself. If you
Yeah.
don't have, if you are given everything on a plate, then you never have to strive for anything. You hear these stories. They're the kind of film scripts that you see, and
Yeah.
the privilege of food and water and warmth and shelter is that primal part of you is like, what am I supposed to be doing now?
Yeah, and I mean I touch on it with clients a lot, when they're like wanting to feel better. And sometimes it's a bit of a reassuring notion to be like, you will know now when you feel better, because it would mean nothing to you if you walked around feeling good all the time. But because you've had this knowledge of yourself at your lowest point, when you're not at your lowest point anymore, you're
Mm.
gonna really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Because you'll remember how dark it was, when you're in the light.
yeah, I like that. One of our tutors, who's like a leading psychotherapist in the UK, she was saying, "I hope you all." I don't know whether she was just talking, but we all took this as like, she said, I hope you all suffer, because
Mhm.
suffering will lead to growth." And I think,
It also makes you a great therapist.
yeah,
You can only take someone so far as you've been yourself.
yeah,
And yeah, like it's really important to have experienced all levels of suffering to be able to sit with someone and hold them in their own suffering and be like, yeah, I know. I genuinely know what you're going through right now.
yeah,
You know? Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of like earlier years. Um Tell us about what would you say was one of your sort of first rock bottoms that started to mold who you were?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that time when I was working in the city,
Hmm.
that was a type of rock bottom, but I don't think I was aware enough to realize that was a rock bottom. I
Hmm.
would definitely get upset about this, like, I'm not meant to be here. And but I think the real pinnacle of rock bottom strangely came at my most celebrated time, which is probably quite interesting. And you
Okay.
talked about Project Awesome, where you come to Project Awesome, and that, just for anyone listening, that was a free fitness movement that was kind of loud, colorful, radically inclusive. And we met at 6:30 in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and
Outside Tower Bridge.
outside Tower Bridge or on
Amazing
Primrose Hill on
picture.
Fridays. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely bonkers. We'd chant,
So
we'd
fun.
bounce, we'd yeah. And it people came because they're like, oh, free fitness at 6:30 in the morning. That's cool. And we'd take like nice pictures and people would look awesome with all these happy people around
Play loud
them.
music. It was so like get pumped up before work. It was great. I loved it.
I would have people, bosses would contact me and say, I'm thinking about coming down to this fitness thing because the people that work for me come in and they accidentally give me a hug instead of shaking my hand. And they like, if they do that, I know they've been to Project Awesome that morning.
Yeah, I forgot about everyone hugs. Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And, you know, like, and it was a bit of a revolution, really. It was like it was a kind of a riotous fitness group, but it was also kind of a revolution that I was fighting against the norm, and
Mhm.
and against the norm of person as well. Like us English people, especially, like we are a bit reserved, and
I bet, yeah.
yeah, and so getting people to dance around, like I had a big bell that I rang, and we were doing like really hard workouts. But when I rang the bell, everyone danced wildly for 15 seconds or whatever, and then they would just carry on. And people came for the fitness, but they stayed for the community, and they stayed for the bonkersness of it, and they felt safe to be themselves. They were seen, they were heard, all these kind of things, and they kind of accidentally got badass fit. And things that came out, like people started companies from it. People went on wild adventures. And
I'm still connected to so many people that I met at Project Awesome. What was his name? The Uganda Marathon.
yeah,
Yeah,
Henry
yeah,
Blanchard, Nick.
so cool.
Yeah, those guys, like tribe bars. You see them everywhere now. They're in all the supermarkets, everything. They came down to Project Awesome. They were coming to Project Awesome. And they started up this company, and they would bring they'd test their bars wrapped in tinfoil, and we'd all have a bar afterwards and kind of feed back on what. And like now that's probably like multi-million-dollar company, maybe like in the tens of millions. I don't know, probably even more than that. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, one of the core elements to overcome depression is community and connection.
Absolutely.
Community and connection is so important. And so it just goes to show this was a free fitness movement. You were not going into this trying to get money, but so like it was priceless what you got from it, like the connections that you built and the community that you built. And loads of people did end up making loads of money. And that's how I thought of you for the London Pride. Like so much stuff comes off of it. It's just wild.
Yeah. And to add to the wildness. So sometimes we'd get 300 people show up. It was just, and the people would chant in right at the beginning, and the chants would echo for like 10 seconds round the city of London. It was madness. And I'd get bands in. Like if I like bands, I'd get them to come and play at 6:30 in the morning on like special anniversaries or whatever. Sometimes I just do it for the fun of it.
Oh, I didn't get to go to any of
Oh,
those.
you missed those ones. But they and it was just this expression of self, and it was coming from a really pure place inside. Well, as pure as I could tell at that point from inside me. But and I felt like I was almost the father of all those people that come. I think that it had I don't know 10,000 followers.
Like God.
What's that?
You had like you were like God. Everyone was like, "Do you know Danny? How do you know Danny?" It was like you were such
kind of like that, but there was also this kind of maybe the Danny name went above who I was, because I would sometimes go and people would come up to me, like newbies would come up to me and be like, "Oh, how long have you been coming?" And I'd just say, "Oh, a little while." But obviously I've been going forever. So this, I was just setting the scene. This is this amazing thing. This is change. And I got invited to be on the Ultimate Hell Week, Special Forces Ultimate Hell Week on the BBC, primetime TV. Did really well on that. I was getting talks and all sorts of things were coming from this. But what the underside, the underbelly of that was that I was living on credit cards, because I spent my whole time doing Project Awesome for free. And so that's obviously very, very stressful. You're waking up at 5:30 every morning anyway. And I kind of, as the father of these guys, I was going to whatever they were doing. So if someone was giving a reading or playing music or whatever it was, I was going to it because I wanted to support them. But obviously they happen at night. Then you're up at 5:30, and slowly, basically, my if I didn't get to have a little nap in the afternoon, I started panicking. I wouldn't have called it anxiety at the time. I thought anxiety was an American thing, but now I would call it a massive amount of anxiety because I hadn't got that extra hours of sleep, and slowly everything just got squeezed, and I didn't feel that I could ask for help. It was because I was God in this
Yeah, and there
thing.
was a real sense of like overwhelm and burnout encroaching.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and I did. And I ended up having complete and utter burnout. And and in the end I was just like, I'm leaving. But the guys were just like, okay, four of the real hardcore strong members, people within those four who've said that it saved their life, took me to one side and said, let's go for a coffee. And they were like, right, we can run it. We'll run it. So you don't have to close it down. I thought I had to close it down.
Yeah.
And it continued on. And at that point I wasn't God, and these guys became the gods. And I would go sometimes I wouldn't, but it just took that pressure off and allowed me to kind of reflect on myself. But yeah, it was a real tough time, feeling like you're letting everyone down, feeling like the red letters are going to destroy you. And because I think a lot of people probably just thought, well, if Dan's doing this for free, he must have a trust fund or something like this. I
Yeah.
absolutely am the furthest away from that. I was just getting more and more in debt. But it felt right. And again, let's go back to that tribal place. The person doing all this stuff in the morning that brings the tribe together, that makes them stronger, makes them fitter, makes them, better warriors, whatever, warriors of life, I guess we were kind of creating. Those people wouldn't need to go and hunt or because they are doing enough already. And people would literally just put it in front of them. But because we don't live in that society, that didn't happen. It has happened since, because like you say, you were like, oh, Dan would be good for this. And that was a really, really great contract for me. But,
Yeah.
that contract kept me afloat in the years after that, where I continued to do crazy stuff that was for free and I made no money for. But being, you mentioned at the beginning, I was voted one of the 100 happiest people in the UK, and got kind of these talks, started calling me the happiness guru. And then that's also was a great source of funds to kind of keep everything else ticking along. And I'd invest most of it back into whatever I was doing. But
Yeah. I mean, like the irony is as well with the Boston relay,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. That you raised so much money. And
yeah,
so it's like you have this. So I also like to ask people kind of about their money stories, because that really impacts career and influences us and decisions we make. And the money story for you seems very much that it's been around you, but you seem to resist it coming to you personally. Even when you were in a banking situation, you were like what is this?
yeah,
What is this stuff? And comes in and goes right back out.
absolutely. And take that even further, I've had kind of meetings with kind of marketing, business, coachy type people, and they will be like, I was like, I really want to be a millionaire. And they're like, why do you want to be a millionaire? I was like, well, then I can help my sisters out. And they're like, that's interesting. And so that there's a dialogue that money does not matter to me. But I think that comes from my childhood, where my dad would get stressed about money, or he'd get stressed about, I haven't really had a normal job. I have worked in these places and I've been a teacher, but at all times it was just not normal. It wasn't, I was filling a gap for as long as I could do it before I could escape again. And my dad would get, come back cross or angry or whatever. And then I'm pretty sure I'm kind of filling the gaps, I guess, but I'm pretty sure my mum would probably say to me, it's because he's stressed about money, or he's stressed about his job. What does a
Yeah.
young boy at that point do? Like, right, I'm not going to be like this. I'm going to reject money completely, and I'm going to reject jobs completely. and that
I
no, that is my money story. Like I have just absolutely rejected it. I have a business now that takes people on adventures. We run across Iceland, we run across Tajikistan, Patagonia, all this sort of stuff. It's actually making money, but I have a business partner that cares about money.
Mhm.
And if it was for me, we would still not be making any money at all. Probably
Yeah,
losing money, but I'd still be doing it for a period until I burn out. And I think that could also be there could actually be a conscious sabotage going on within this. That
definitely.
that when things start getting successful, also an ADHD thing. When things start becoming successful, you're bored. Like
Yeah.
where's the struggle to make this actually work? And even recently, I've been able to I had to tell a few lies on my tax return to be able to say that I can afford a house. But I own a house now. It's like, oh my goodness, this is just like ridiculous. And you're smiling because you know how mad that is that I actually own anything. And
Well,
and
it's so far away for me, like, I can't even I don't know when I'm
yeah,
yeah,
but we've
yeah,
lived a similar life where we've kind of done lots of different things, and not that side of things either hasn't come up, or we've whether we're sabotaging it ourselves or whatever it is just that just hasn't. Most of my friends owned a house by by the time they're 23.
yeah. Well, I think that what we both have in common, the freedom thing is big. Freedom is my every coach and therapist, whatever I've worked with, they're like, right, freedom is like, I am freedom. Like, do not tie me down, pin me to anything. I have to be free. But also an experience of growing up and seeing parents, in both our cases, it's father, the breadwinner, um, have either have or not have money, but associate it with very long working hours and a lot of stress. And I know that from a young age, I would be like, that does not like you're not happy.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I reject a life of being imprisoned to a job as an exchange for money. That's not cool. I'm not interested in that. And so
Yeah.
even though I want money because money to me equals freedom, there's a part of me that has always rejected any like normal big job salary. I'm just like, ugh, get away.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
exactly that. And I think it's like I say, I've got the house. I For the first time ever, I know I'm going to be able to afford to live next year. These are the first years of my life where that's happened.
Yeah.
And but the interesting thing is that with that, probably because there's a loss of freedom, like, okay, I've got a mortgage to pay on this house
Mortgage.
and all
Yeah,
that
but
sort of stuff.
mortgage is better than rent, right? Right?
I don't know. Because
And
rent,
usually you can work it so that the mortgage is lower than what most people will pay for rent.
that
That's the hope.
yes, that is true. But anyway, either way, the funny thing is that I've been working towards these things, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what I've been. This has been a way of distracting yourself. Like things haven't got better because I own a house or because I've got a wage. It's like you just don't have to think about those anymore. So now you kind of go at one level deeper, and you're like, okay, let's address these other things that have been going on in your life.
Mhm. Yeah. So, rock bottom, burnout from Project Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what was the sort of pivotal moment where you decided that you wanted to start training to be a therapist?
Oh
When did
wow.
that
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's been happening for a long time. I actually was I probably like I was having I was having difficulty maintaining relationships for a long period. And
Mhm.
I went to the therapist because I really like to have a long-term relationship. At least I perceive that I would like to have one of those. It seems like that would make me fit in. It's a bit like owning a house. It's probably anyway. And I would see a therapist, and she'd say, and I'd say a little bit about not having any money and like what am I kind of doing with myself and all this sort of stuff. And she said, Dan, this therapist, it's strange that she said it, because obviously as a therapist, she wouldn't give me very much at all. Like she wasn't giving me her opinion. She might echo my own words back to me occasionally, but that was it. But then she was like, Dan, you would be such a good therapist. And I'd already had this kind of experience where even when I'd go traveling when I was in my early 20s, 21, people were coming up to me. I met two sisters. One of them told me she was pregnant and nobody knew, and the other one told me she'd been raped and nobody knew. Literally, I'd met them that day, and by the night they were telling me these things, and I was kind of like, this has continued my whole life, and then you become this leader of Project Awesome, the dad, the god, however you want to call it. Definitely the god was your word, by the way. I'm feeling conscious saying that.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt like I was dad, and everyone would come to me with their stories and be open, and we'd have these deep conversations. And again, I'm just like, oh wow, this is interesting. People keep telling me these things, and then that continued. And then now I've started this company, and I'm taking people on these adventures, and people tell me things, and I was just like, I need to be prepared. I need to upskill so that I can deal with these. Make sure that I can deal with them. I think people were telling me them because they knew I could deal with them initially. And I was able to have a conversation, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of being empathetic and listening. And then I was like, but I thought I need to make sure that I'm prepared for this. And then I looked into transactional analysis, the
Mhm.
psychotherapy, and
Love TA. Yeah.
yeah, it's brilliant. And then
Yeah.
I went to because they call it a 101, like an introduction. And I was like, oh my God, this is magic. And I love people. I'm really interested in people. I'm one of those people that could be at the airport and just watch people come through and just uh, take the love that you see or the emotions that you see as people are leaving, as they're coming back and all that sort of stuff. It's just totally beautiful.
That's like the opening scene of Love
I
Actually.
know. I was
Oh,
basically trying to recreate it for you. But yes, and then you start having these really deep conversations with your kind of colleagues at this point, your training buddies, and these would kind of get, they start with very, very basic stuff, and then they get deeper and deeper and deeper, and those conversations were the deepest conversations I've ever had in my life, the most meaningful conversations, and it's just kind of I'm at the point where you were probably 2 years ago, where I'm just about to move into the giving your time for free and getting the experience, but also giving, it's funny that we're talking about giving your time for free. It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel, because there's the step where you will be charging. It's not
yeah.
about giving your time for free. But it is interesting that's the point that's coming. And we were talking before we were kind of on air, and you were saying how tiring that period is, where you're having to work and do the therapy and do everything else that you're.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a
It's
lot.
really, yeah. But
So
it's just part of the industry that trainees don't get paid, but actually there's starting to be pushback within the industry on that because it's like it's almost exploitative. Trainees should get paid something. Like it's a lot. So I'm seeing people that I've worked with previously and who were like uh tutors of mine and supervisors are starting to push back on that because everyone believe like life is expensive
yeah,
and it's really expensive to train to be a therapist. So trainees should get something. So hopefully that changes one day.
yeah. With the training and the therapy you have to have on a weekly basis to get your qualification, you're probably
And
looking at 5,000, and that's living up in Sheffield, not down in London. So that's a lot of money to just come straight out of your wage after taxes.
yeah,
And but anyway, I will also be able to set up my own private practice as well. But I want to do a placement and get experience first and make sure that I'm ready for it. And because
hmm
when you're in these placements, you obviously get supervision. There's someone you can talk to people, and they can tell you if you can't find a way in, then um, you can get
yeah,
advice and stuff like this. So it's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Okay, so where would you say you are now? Where do you sit now with career and life?
I would say I'm at one of those crossroads that where everything, because of what I've been learning through therapy, because of what I've been learning through my training and just life, life is forever teaching us, isn't it? That I'm in a transitional period where everything is up in the air. It's realigned what I think of my past, what I see of myself, and it's all just gone like that. And things are settling. And when things are settling, you have that opportunity just to kind of move things around and to see things like if you've been masked for a while, like being a character and things like this, then there's this opportunity to not put that mask back on because it's all in the air. And what I have seen as perfect previously, I realize is far from it. And so there's this transitional period. I'm learning a lot about myself and how I want to be, how I want to be generally in the world and how I want to be perceived. And
Yeah.
uh, an author, I don't feel like I wasn't being authentic when I was doing Project Awesome and giving so much energy, but it was an authenticism based on my current knowledge. And whereas now I have much more knowledge and my authentic self is a different version.
Yeah.
And I am trying to, like a lot of what we've talked about is giving, whether that's creating the run across America, whether that's Project Awesome, even psychotherapy is, and a lot of other things I do in my life have always been about giving. And you lack value, actually, whereas probably actually where all this comes from. Like, you have to create value for yourself because who would like you for who you are? And now I'm like, even though I don't think I've dropped that belief, I'm sitting within it and being like, well, deal with it because that's who I am. And what I'm hoping is in the next few years, 10 years, whatever it is, whatever it takes, to find the value in self.
Yeah. And also to not have to wear that mask of always being the happiness person, that you have all the dimensions of being a human. Like you are Danny, and sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're mad,
Yeah.
and that's okay. You can show all of those sides
Yeah.
of yourself.
But the interesting thing is that they very rarely happen during that period because I tried so hard to make sure I was too busy having fun to allow those bits to ever be seen by myself and by myself, let alone by others. You can't show what you don't know yourself, can you? And
Mm-hmm.
as I'm progressing, I am like, there was a point where in my therapy, I was saying there's this monster inside me, this angry monster. And it was like, let's not call it a monster. And been talking about boundary setting, and it's like, everyone has anger in them, and to maintain your boundaries and to stop people overstepping them, sometimes you need anger. And anyway, I don't know whether he was kind of likening it to someone coming into your home, by breaking into your home. Like, at
Yeah.
some point, you need to have that adrenaline and be like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And it was so, that moment was so huge for me that it's okay to have
Just,
those feelings. But before
yeah.
I didn't even know I had them. So how could I express them if I didn't know? Um, and it was just like, it was like a moment. It was like kind of like, it was like poof. And now I know it's fine. And now, uh, if you feel that, I can express it, and I can express it in exactly the same voice as I'm having this conversation with you. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to involve anything else. It can just be like, oh guys, that doesn't feel like that was okay.
Yeah. It's a muscle though, right? And if
Yeah.
you've never used it, it's really uncomfortable the first few times. And I can relate to this as well. Like boundaries. I think I've seen it more in not with family, but more with friendships and a bit with dating.
Yeah.
Um, where I you know, before yeah, before this training and everything, it was like always showed up for people like 110%, and people could be quite controlling with me, and I just kind of let them. And it was during the training that I started to be like, no. And I had a couple uncomfortable situations with friends where, but it was like, it was the first couple of times I'd ever put down a boundary, and
Yeah.
it was very uncomfortable. Like the first time you do it, you're like, oh my God, I'm a monster. Like you said, you
Yeah.
feel like you really judge yourself, but it's actually, you'll get better at it and it will get easier. And it's like, no, I'm not going to tell you everything about me. Or like, no, it's not your place to tell me to do this or do that. You're my friend, respect my boundary, or step away.
But did you go through a period where you kind of transitioned between friendship groups?
Yeah, and you know what? I tell this with clients a lot. As your self-awareness kind of evolves, one, what seems to happen a lot is as people suddenly are like, oh God, those people that I was hanging out with weren't actually very good for me, or they didn't really care about my well-being. So I see this with clients and I say to kind of take like a soft friend audit, or not necessarily friends, like everyone in your life, like an audit, and just make a note of like how you feel after you spend time with certain people,
Yeah.
because some of them will really drain your energy,
Yeah.
or you might always leave feeling like it was not a mutual exchange, like they dump everything on you, we don't really care about what's going on for you. You might always be angry or frustrated, or they might have, a no off switch when it comes to meeting for a drink or something like that. Like there'll be people and you're just like, I'm not feeling good anymore when I spend time with these people. And yeah, I mean, the people that I considered to be the closest people in my life when I started training to who are the closest people in my life now has shifted by about 75%, I would say. Like some of them are still there, but some of them are like no longer in my inner circle. They're a couple more layers out. Like I still see them, but they're not like my closest confidants. And then there's a whole lot of new people that have come in, that, and your relationships should fill you up, they should fill up your cup and rejuvenate and restore you, and it should be very reciprocal. And when that's not there now, I'm so aware of it.
Mm.
But I previously had, I'd be like, yeah, that's a cool person, let's hang out, and I never
Yeah.
used to think about it.
Wow. Yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I think we're coming to pretty close to an hour, but I would like to say, on the back of all of these experiences that you've had, because there's been so many, what advice would you today, in this process that you're going through, that of self-knowledge, what advice would you give to your younger self, either a rock bottom version of yourself or your younger self? What would you tell yourself?
Okay, so that's really easy for me. But before we go back there, something was coming into my head. So I'd like to say something to myself of 2 hours ago before this conversation, and
Hmm.
to be, because I was thinking about this, being referred to as the happiness guru, and when we were kind of talking about it before we were on air, it's kind of like, do I feel completely comfortable with that kind of thing? But actually, the point is that I have learned a lot. I've lived a wild life. I have a lot of stories I can tell that can punctuate lots of very good lessons. And then I was thinking, like, like we've been talking here is like, I'm unraveling a lot of that stuff. But the fact is, I am much more capable now than I was 5 years ago to be the happiness guru, because I'm learning all these skills from psychotherapy. So that's just something that's come to me over this conversation, is that, yes, I can still be the happiness guru if that's what the path that I want to take, but I'll do it in a much more real way. And I like, yes,
And
there's
you'll have
anger here, there's sadness. You can't get away from those, and here's your happiness also. I'll be the emotional guru rather than the
boundaries.
happiness guru. Just like we need sadness. Inside Out taught us that. So
No, that film.
So good, isn't it? And literally that's what I've been going through. It's like but I'm 46 years old. I wish I'd had a joy that could uh learn those lessons and bring happiness and everything in as a 12-year-old or whatever, however old the girl is. But if I go back to let's go back to my younger self. It's so easy. It's so simple. And that is just to say that you're enough as you are.
Yeah.
And it would be so interesting if I could go back once a night, just hold my little 7-year-old self and just say, you're enough as you are. What would the difference be in my life? And it's, it's an emotional thing to think about that.
That's such like powerful inner child work right
Mm,
there.
mm,
Trying to get people to sort of reconnect with the younger version of themselves is really, that's a lot of the work right there.
yeah. That's why I meditate on every morning. I
Yeah.
hold myself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, crazy, isn't it? What a journey. What life is a crazy journey, and you can be moved around by what's happening around you, and you can be influenced by the politics or the new trends or whatever it is. But I personally feel like all we need is to feel like we're enough and that we can follow our own nose kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, following your true inner compass and it will be okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Danny. This was really, really inspiring and moving, and I'm really like proud that you've been part of my journey for the last 10 years. So,
Uh,
um,
Likewise, it's been a mutual 10 years of occasionally hanging out and continuously growing. And I think we've both had probably effects on each of us, I think.
yeah, definitely affected each other's trajectory in a positive way for sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye.